So good morning, everyone. My name's Malini Tholat. I'm a livelihoods advisor with Save the Children. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this session. My other two co-panelists on the session are Aduma Sejumorang from Save the Children Indonesia, and Majd Andoni from Zeva Inc., the technical service provider that has been our core partner as we've developed this application. So I will just run you through a little bit of the background and the kind of rationale for this application. Aduma will speak to the programmatic interventions and the lessons we've learned during our field testing. And Majd will run you through a little bit of the design process and some of the functionality technical aspects of the application permits, to leaving a good amount of time for Q&A at the end. So thanks for your patience. We'll save questions till the last, and I'll move ahead. So Majd, next screen, thank you. So the premise of this application is built on or within an existing program that we have been implementing with our partners Mondelez and Olam in Indonesia for the last 4 years. This is very much a value shared partnership framework. Mondelez, as many of you might know, is a large global food company. And this is part of their sustainability efforts. They really seek to support the cocoa growing communities that they source from, and ensure that farmers have the ability and incentive to continue to produce cocoa as a viable source of income to meet the needs of their households as well as the community overall. Olam, as a commodity aggregator, is interested in ensuring an efficient and productive supply chain, and Save the Children, as the other partners, are really focused on ensuring that these communities are resilient and can invest in their children. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this is part of a project that's funded by Mondelez. It's the Mondelez Cocoa Life project with the overall goal of building resilience of cocoa farming communities. We are working in 3 geographies in Indonesia right now. The project is built on multiple pillars, but the key pillars that are linked to this particular pilot that we're talking about today, the application, is one of the priorities of the program to build viable youth economic opportunities within cocoa value chain. Mondelez is very invested in supporting young people, recognizing that they are really the next generation of farmers that will continue to build the resilience of these value chains. They recognize there are a lot of challenges, and as well that farming doesn't often meet their aspirational or economic needs. So really looking at how we can address all of these challenges. And the other pillar that's critical to this particular application is the efforts to improve, to professionalize cocoa farming, increase productivity and opportunities for income by the cocoa farmers themselves. So in order to, within these 2 pillars, Save the Children, as part of the program, had developed a cadre of youth service providers that were provided technical skills, entrepreneurial skills, life skills, and really empowered and facilitated to start their own businesses and provide fee for service products to the farming community. And as these young people started these businesses and tried to grow them, we found they faced multiple challenges. Despite the kind of capacity building support and facilitation support that was provided by the program. So the youth service providers lacked professional business tools to plan, to connect with customers, to access business information, and they also lacked access to finance. That's a key challenge, especially with these informal businesses. Farmers as well, on the other hand, lacked consistent access to quality services. They didn't know where to look widely for appropriate services, or be able to determine the quality of the services that would be provided to them. And the supply chain partners sought to increase adoption of good agricultural practices and do provide a tremendous amount of support to farmers in terms of training, in terms of mentoring, in terms of follow-up and all of that, but still have limited insight into farmer adoption behaviors and patterns. Next slide. So based on kind of all of these challenges we were coming across in the field as we implemented, we decided to build this application. So what is it? What is this application? It is on the front end, it is a digital ledger technology-based smartphone application, which is for service providers and farmers. It's like a marketplace for services. And the current services in the pilot phase, which we are just near completing, is somewhat limited to skilled applications on farms. So it's pruning, grafting services. All of these are in high demand by farmers and fairly remunerative. But in the future, we are really seeking to expand this beyond these skill-based services to other products, nurseries for seedlings, inputs, transportation, etc. So broaden the range of services that are made available through this. And on the back end, it's a web-based admin portal for the key stakeholders to manage, register and track the service providers and farmers and analyze the data that's generated through the transactions that are executed. Currently, it's a closed platform, so Save is the admin, and we would possibly invite the supply chain partner as we develop this further. But future admins could include multiple different external stakeholders, including financial services, government extension, and so on. And we are also very focused on issues of safety in terms of information and data sharing, and the data sharing protocols and so on. So and ensuring that youth and farmers authorize the users of their data, and that kind of is also managed by Save the Children as a super admin. Next slide, please. So what does this application do? So the youth, who are the service providers, the application is a marketplace for them to kind of display their services to potential customers. So they market their services, they can connect with customers, can connect with them, they can connect to existing customers through the application. They can also develop business-to-business relationships with other service providers. So if the request for a service is not within their, ability based on the size of the service or the range of services, they can develop, subcontractual relationships with other service providers on the same application. They can negotiate service agreements with the customers, and they can share data with the users. Farmers can search for service providers based on a number of different factors: geography, types of services, etc. They can also negotiate services, and they also can, once the service has been executed, rate the service providers. So this is really the quality management function that we've built into this over time. As more and more service providers get rated, farmers then can determine which service providers they would want to purchase services from, and the farmers as well can share data, etc. And then, of course, there's the impact on the market system. It helps formalize these very informal businesses. It improves access. It also has the effect of greater transparency as more of these transactions are executed. And again, significant amount of data being generated in terms of the number of transactions, types of transactions, who's transacting, etc., for analysis and decision making. Next slide. Okay, so the way we have implemented, it's a phased approach. Of course, we went through a very intensive design process that Marj will speak to later. The phase one of this, which was in December, started in December, and we're just wrapping up right now, was really testing the core business component. So we launched the application in terms of a field test with a closed group of service providers and farmer users in December. We are really seeking here to test the functionality and ease of use and see whether the farmers find this useful, whether it's effective from a demand perspective, at least at that scale that we have executed the pilot in. And we also developed a basic data storage sharing model and protection policies. At the moment, it's closed with just the donor and the implementing agency SAVE involved. In phase two, which will start later this year, we'll really expand towards the financial service and business management component for the service providers. So cash flow management tools and partnering with a financial service institution to perhaps test a credit product. So that's where we're looking at in the next phase, and as well really strengthen the data storage and sharing model that's key to protecting information as we open this up to multiple stakeholders. Next slide, please. And as a final word on this, so that's really the broad framework of the application. One of the questions we are often asked is, why did you decide to use a DLT-based system? And there are multiple other technology platforms that could serve the purpose for the the basic functional transactions between the service providers and the farmers. But our reason for selecting DLT was the nature of DLT that allows for secure and integrity of data and multiple users. So the immutable aspect of DLT platform that allows the service providers to build a credible business history because the entries cannot be altered. And it also provides a layer of protection for youth against failure to be compensated, as through the application you track every stage of the service agreement. It also allows for user-controlled identities, both by the service providers and farmers, so they can control the information, who accesses it, and so on. And most importantly, eventually, the decentralized nature of it, so that we can bring on other users, such as financial institutions and other civil society actors or government as may be relevant. So with that, I will hand over to Aduma to really go into the meat of this, which is really the process and field and some of our lessons learned and challenges and so on. Over to you, Aduma.
Thank you, Malini. So in terms of the field testing, there are a few steps that we have conducted so far, but I think first let's go to the next slide, Marj, please. Yeah, so who are our target? As Malini just mentioned, that this initiative was designed for the young generation in cocoa. So our target is for the youth 18 to 24 years old, and for those who have interest to learn about cocoa farm management, and for those who have interest in selling their service in cocoa. So we did a few of selections through the developing some criteria for the youth to attend the good agriculture practices training. So from the piloting projects, then there are already like 931 youth who joined the GAP training. We called it good agriculture practices, which is they have to learn about how to manage the cocoa farm itself, and then also by seeking like exploring the potentials of business related to the cocoa. And from the 931, 30% of them are youth female. And then from that training, that until now there are already like 340 youth start to manage their family cocoa farms, and 30 of them become youth trainers who like able to train their peers in terms of good agriculture practices. And then in the applications, that there's already like 158 start the new business as a cocoa service providers. Next slide, please, Mach. Okay, so this is the journey that we have done so far. This is the process. So we divided them into like 4 phases. So we start this project in the midst of 2016 through the good agriculture practices training, and this is about like 2 weeks training. And in the beginning, then this training conducted by our supply chain partners, Olam, and then the training like followed with the on-job training. So in the on-job training, that we work with the local community, the local village leader, like to land piece of land for them to practice what they've learned in the gap training. And then after that, then we moved to the second phase in the 2017, where youth already like start managing their family cocoa farms, and some of them already like start selling their services, their skills to the other farmers. And then in phase 3, then by looking at the challenge that facing by the youth, then we working with Zeva to develop this application, this blockchain applications, and then testing the application as well by getting the feedback from the farmers and youth as well. And then from January to right now, then the farmers already like we did the pilot testing already for the application. So so far that there's already like 116 agreements made and completed by the youth and farmers through these applications. Next slide, please, Mach. So through the journey that we're facing, that we also consider, we also learned some of challenges that we face in the field. The first is about need more times for testing improvements to get these applications more friendly users, because moreover, because the farmers that we are targeting is like very limited knowledge about the technology, smartphone, and so on. And also some of them also living in the very rural area, which very limited access also to the internet connection and smartphone. And in addition to that, they also have very limited knowledge about the literacy itself. And then also next, multiple times application testing and improvement, of course. So after doing some testings, then we gather the farmers and then the youth and getting feedback from them, and then taking that that feedback to improve the applications. And then anticipate the youth migration, because you know, like even though that we have been invested, for example, for them to train them in the GAP, and then encourage them also with the life skills another life skills training. But you know, the age from 18 to 24, like it's easy for them also like to change their mind, right? And then they just decide to move to the city, for example, and looking for another job in the city. And when it's like fail, and they get back again to the villages. So we consider that as a part of our challenge as well. And then also lack of acceptance from the community to get youth, particularly for young girl, to manage the farm, because you know, like this is some like pragmatic practices right now that although they've been trained, they are certified, but as they are dealing with the more adult farmers who have been like managing the cocoa farms from for very long time, then still very lack of acceptance from the community, because they said, oh dear, you are still young, how come you know how to manage the farm? So this kind of challenge that we face. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, March.
I did.
Yes, and then the learning. Yes, the learning that we have, that the technology is an ongoing process learning, so need time and investment, and then also open communications with both youth and farmers should be part of our concern as well, and also equality for both young boy and girl to learn and to sell their skills and expertise to broader farmers, and then also promote more rooms for boys and girls to learn and show their skills. And then from all the practices that we have done, we also like have set up the time to reflect what we have done, and then also open for change, be open for the feedback from farmers to get the application more friendly for them. And then also in building these applications, in managing this, set up this process, then we also consider that strong partnership and good collaborations with all of our partners, supply chain partners, community leaders, and farmers are very the keys to the success of this program. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the end of my presentation. So this I just capture the quote from one of our young girl, that they say that in the beginning she feels that there is very limited room for her also to learn or to show her expertise, but right now by practicing and by showing her product and her expertise to the other farmers, then he can get the orders right now. Thank you, and I hand over to Mach for the next presentation.
Thanks, Aduma. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our session. I'm honored to be part of this panel to talk to you about our CCAP blockchain Cocoa Life project. So thanks to Melanie and Aduma, they gave you the partnership side, the business side. So let me will not go deep into the technical aspect of the project, but let me give you a technical overview and see how the business objectives that Aduma and Melanie talked about will fit into our technical design process for this project. So let me start first with to expand on what Melanie said of why we use blockchain. I'm sure most of you has been involved in technical application or using technical application in your youth development practices or jobs, and most of you has been using the simple traditional way of development, which is using a database to store the data you need, and the simple either a web portal or a mobile app to view, update, and add and edit the data. However, in this project, we decided to substitute the database with a blockchain distributed ledger for specific reason. I will mention 4 of them right now. Melanie also mentioned some, but I'm going to concentrate on 4 of them. First of them is immutability. The blockchain hyperledger is a read-only ledger. It's an append-only ledger. You cannot delete or you cannot edit an existing record, which means you will have a full audit trail of all the operations that happened on the ledger from all the users, either they're farmers, youth service providers, or admins. The second one is the security aspect of the blockchain ledger. in terms there is no single point of failures in terms of security, which means if a single node was hacked and some try to add some malicious entries to the blockchain ledger, the other distributed nodes will detect that there is some malicious data being added by this node, and is gonna reject all the data that this node is trying to add. The third one is redundancy and distribution. So blockchain on its core is a distributed ledger based on its name, which means you can have nodes shared all over the world, communicating with each other for a single goal, which is trying to figure out which is the correct entry that need to be added to this ledger. The last one that I'm going to talk about is accountability, in terms that all users that use in the blockchain have a certificate that they use it to log in to either the mobile app or the web app along with their username and password. And the certificate is used to sign all the entries that's added by this user to the Hyperledger. So there is full accountability from any user that adds any entries to this ledger because it's signed by a certificate that has his name. So let's now talk about the design process and how this this project started and how it's ended, or how it's moving toward its next goal. So the kickoff meeting was on September 2018 between Zeva, Save the Children US, and also input from the Save the Children Indonesia. But because there is a big time difference between both, they couldn't attend the meetings. We had to take either do a special meetings with them or take their input by emails. But after the kickoff meeting, from our side as Zeva, we started developing the web portal, and Save the Children Indonesia team started doing some focus group discussions with youth and service providers to try to get as much information as we can, so we make sure we are developing the right product for the right audience. In November 2018, we all agreed that we need to go to Indonesia and have an in-country design workshop with the youth and farmers. So it was Zeva and the Save the Children US team. We went to Indonesia. We sat down with youth and farmers and the Save the Children Indonesia team. We did a lot of, we went to the cocoa farms. We talked with farmers, with youth, with practically everyone is going to be involved and will be using this project. The result of this meeting was, let's keep the web portal we are developing right now for the admins to add youths and farmers and do some searches and view reports on the status of the project. But we're going to need to also develop a mobile app, an Android mobile app, to be used by the farmer and the youth. This started on December 2018, and after 11 months, we finalized both the web portal for the admin and the mobile app for the youth and the farmers. And in November 2019, I went back to Indonesia for an in-country staff training, where I sat down with the Save the Children Indonesia team. We went through the admin portal, which is, if there is time, I'm going to show it to you in this session. Then the next day, some youth came, and I was extremely happy, as everyone that was in training, to see that we're able to add youth to the solution. They're getting their username and password. They're able to download the mobile app, and they're able to use it and interact with it fully with all its features. So after this successful result from the staff training, the mobile went live the next week on November 2019. So if you want to summarize the benefits of this app, or like the three main features, the first feature would be create a digital presence or a digital identity for youth service providers and farmers, especially related and concentrating on the cocoa related work and expertise, where farmers can put information about their land, the size of it, how many cocoa trees, where the youth can put pictures of their work, say what's the type of work they can do, like pruning, side crafting, sanitization, and say if they're expert in any of them. The second feature is the ability for farmers to communicate with service youth providers and ask them to provide the services that they know in their farm. The third one would be a service agreement management and tracking, where we can track all the all the service agreement operation from the initiation from the farmer side through the negotiation, the work starting, work completion, and even payment, all the way to rating the service providers from the farmers. So some lessons learned from a technical side. I'm sorry if this is a bit technical, especially the last one, but this is what we learn as Zeva, as a technical provider for the solution. So first lesson learned would be never to assume any technical knowledge from your users. What I learned from Indonesia, they know how to use Grab, they know how to use Facebook, they know how to use WhatsApp. If your app is similar to those, you're all good. If it's different, you're gonna need some intensive training, especially from the farmer side. So try to use, the second one would be try to use as much icons as possible. Steer away from text, even we think text is more descriptive, but icons looks better. And if it's an icon that's descriptive, it's gonna substitute for a whole lot of text. Never use an Android feature that's limited to the latest Android versions, because as we saw in the training session, the youth and the farmers have what could be considered an old phones with old Android versions. So stick to developing for version 4 or version 5 of Android to be compatible with all the features of phones, old and new. The fourth one, so if your app is trying to do 2 consecutive calls that depend on each other, keep it the internet connection interruptions that could happen, because people in Indonesia usually use 3G, not ADSL or any reliable connection. So keep in mind the internet interruption might happen, and handle that in your app. So the last one, which is our new feature. So Melanie talked to you, also I think Aduma did, about phase 2, where we're gonna try to add financial partners, other stakeholders into the application. But before going into phase 2, which is gonna I think start by the end of this year, we decided to do, we could call it phase 1.1, which is make the current application as good as possible to increase the adaptation and the usability from the farmers and youth, to have a bigger audience to be able to add other partners in the future. So the features that we got, or the feedback that we got from farmers and youth so far, and we're working to implement this, and we should be piloting in the next, I think in the next week. We're almost done with just doing our final testing. So the new features we're gonna add, let's go through them quickly, which is improve the design of the app to make it more user-friendly and easier to view. The second one, which is give the farmers the ability to give down payment to youth, because that's what actually is happening in reality. When the youth started the job, he gets a down payment from the farmer because he needs to buy some tools and some stuff. So we're going to give them this ability to do it in the app. Third one is give the ability for farmers to register from the app. So the youth is going to be controlled by the Save the Children admin. They want to add youth that have their GAB training, that have their on-job training. Is going to be still controlled from the admins, but the farmers, we're going to need, or we want to have as many farmers as possible. So there are more farmers to request more services from the youth. So we're giving the users, the farmers, the ability to download the app and register from the mobile app, where they provide their personal information. They got a username and password, and they're ready to log into the app and request services from service providers. The fifth one, which is indication for activity. which means like think of it like if you're using like Facebook Messenger, you would like to know if the user is online or has been away for a couple of minutes or hour of, or if he has been away for years and not even using the app anymore. So that's a request that came from farmers. They would like to know if the youth they're requesting services from is active on this app or have never ever used it or haven't used it in a while. The next one, which is integrating with Google Maps, where to help youth find a farmer's farm easier. The last one, which is giving the youth the ability to add pictures of their previous works and even link to YouTube videos if they have videos for their work, and for farmers to add pictures of their farm, because youth would like to know like the format or the structure of the farmer's farm, because there is some different pricing based on if it's on a hill or it's on a straight ground or on a mountain or whatever. So let me now switch, and I think I have a couple of minutes. I would like to switch and show you a real quick the web portal for admins. So this is the logging screen. I have a username and password. I'm going to sign into the portal. The first page is going to see is the service provider list. Now I'm signed in. I'm signed into the portal. First thing I say is the service provider list. I can see all the service providers here. We can go next or go to the last. I can see those information about the service providers, their name, if they have their GAB training completed, their status, their address, and if they're providing services or not, and how many service agreement initiated, completed, paid, and rated, and their rating. I can also add new. I can export them to Excel. I can edit or deactivate this user. If, for example, we go into the details of one of them, you'll see all the personal information, address information, program information regarding their GAB training and if they're providing services. We can also add some training for them, services and marketing if they're providing services, and see the service agreement they have been into and what's the progress of each one. Same thing for the farm. It's mainly the same thing, the farm name, the status, the name of the farmer, and the service agreement. But if we go into one of them, let's say this one, there's one additional, which is farm and crops, where the user can say the size of his farm, how many cocoa trees they have, and the average age of the cocoa trees. The third section is the global search, where you can search for either service providers, farmers, or both. You can search by ID, by first name, last name, village, or district, or the services offered for youth. So if I say I want youth that does crafting and submit, I will get all this youth, or those youth that provide the crafting services, and I can filter it more by village or district or first name or last name or whatever I need. The admins, there is 3 roles of admins. There is a super admin who can add other super admins and even youth and farmers. There is a regular admin that can add other admins and along with the youth and farmers. And there is a partner, which is a read-only admin that cannot add admins or youth or farmers. They're just like a read-only that can go into the system and see who's the youth, who's the farmers, how many service agreements they're having, and all those information. The last one before I finish my presentation, this is the bulk upload form. So Save the Children in Indonesia, with partnership with Mondelez and Olam, have a huge database of youth service providers and farmers. And it doesn't make sense to ask them to go to the service provider page and add them one by other. So we created a bulk upload page where they extract the data in Excel format, choose it here, choose whatever this is, a farm or a service provider Excel sheet, submit, and we're gonna bulk add all the rows and all the users in the Excel sheet, and create users for them and send them SMS with their username and password. So that's all for me. Back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Majd. Thanks, Aduma. So we have a few questions here. I will just switch to Q&A. There's a question from Jane, which is really asking for more information on the youths and the farmers. Aduma, I might ask you to respond to this, and then there's another set of questions around the business model, which I'll try and take. So the question from Jane, Aduma, is Jane is asking whether youth are also among the farmers. Are youth also farmers, and whether we've seen any differences across segments of farmers on service uptake, or differences between youth and other service providers who are providing services in that area. Aduma, is there any, can you respond to that question?
Yes, thank you, Malini. So as mentioned in my last presentations, that these youth are coming from the villages, and most of them are the cocoa farmers, cocoa family farmers. So their families has their cocoa farms. So and they are staying in the villages. So they are we call that as a youth cocoa farmers. And then also, who are they? The service providers. Yeah, from those youth who have interest in learning about good agriculture practices, and then we train them also. We do some selections, we do some testing for them by doing this, by looking at their skills, because like not all the youth farmers can do grafting, for example, but they are more interested in pruning, so no problem. So for those who have interest in managing the cocoa farm for whole, then we will direct them to as a cocoa farms to manage the cocoa farms. And then for those who have like a set of skills, for example in pruning, in grafting, then we will also get them to be like a cocoa service provider. So I hope that can answer my answer already address your questions. And also about the surface uptake, yeah, more or less same, is related to the pruning, grafting, sanitation, nurseries. Yeah, that's most. So more or less same for all the farmers. I hope I already answer the questions, Malini. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Aduma. And just to add to that, Jane, I think so at the moment we've done a fairly close pilot. It was based more on testing functionality, but we are now in discussions in the next stage to expand this app. It's a closed platform, so the farmers are downloading the application by invitation at the moment. So they were selected in collaboration with the supply chain partners to kind of look at, bring in a set of kind of typical smallholder farmers with relatively small land holding, but who also utilize these services and need to be utilizing these services. But we will expand this. We're going to open up this app in the next phase, so we'll get a better sense of segmentation in terms of those who are driving demand for the services. So that's planned for the next stage, but appreciate the question. We do not have that data yet. So the next question from Christina is around the business model, and I think there are a couple of other questions related to this. So with the business model, again, the intention, so this is intention right now. We haven't tested this, and we're certainly not at a stage where we are able to accurately determine specific return on investment for different, I guess, users or actors. But this is built on the premise. The idea is to expand One is the base of service providers, and then there might be some kind of fee for use of the platform. So that's on the service provider end as we scale this application. And then the other kind of component of the business model is intended to be the users of the information, the supply chain partners, the financial service providers, as they utilize the transactional data that emerges from this platform to reach customers or make business decisions. So business model built around those users of information, as well as users of and of the data for different types of business purposes. So that's the premise and the concept. And as we said, in phase 2, we are gonna test the expansion of the users on one end, as well as the expansion of the service providers. And hopefully a year from now, we can come back to you with some solid data on that. That's kind of related to the whole business model set of questions. So, Atuma, there are a couple of more detailed questions here. I'll pick one for you. There's a question around the payment for the phones. Were the youth asked to pay for the telephones? Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of the actual technology that the youth are using in order to use this application?
Okay, thank you, Malini, for the questions. So actually, that by having the order from the farmers, then the youth will get paid, right, from the service. So this is like the mutual benefit between the farmers and the youth as a service provider. So they will also offer their skills with set of price, right? For example, for grafting, that the unit cost will be like this. So all that cost will cover their credit fund and then the transportations to get to the farmer, to the cocoa farms, and also like the time that they invest to provide the services to the cocoa farms. I think, has it answered the questions, Malini?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are not paying for phones or use of airtime. That is all on the youth. And the remuneration that they get from the businesses and the business transactions generated through the app should adequately cover the cost of all of these. So they have to develop their pricing based on that as well. Okay, thank you. There's a question around, I'm not sure I understand the question around down payments. We have not requested down payments, but SDC right now is the main admin. We are facilitating, as we said, it's right now a closed platform. So we are facilitating new registrations of service providers as well as farmer users. We are going to, this role might change, but we would intend to remain one of the core primary admins of this application, even as it gets scaled and other admins are brought on board. So at this point in time, we intend to remain one of the primary, as the founders and initial investors into this application. So I'll just address Owen's question around replicability. Yes, absolutely. So this application has been built in Indonesia, and therefore with some with some adaptations, mainly related to language, and as well types of services that are typical in different countries and contexts. We believe this will be applicable across value chains as well as across countries. So we do see a lot of potential for replicating this in many different contexts. And we expect that, yes, it'll be an expedited time frame relative to the others. There's a question around budget size of this multi-phase project. So if it's budget just related to the application, that has, the main investment has been made by Save the Children right now as part of its global innovation funding facilities. And it's within about so far, and primarily the cost has been related to the technical development cost. It's about, I mean, I can't give an exact figure, but I would say it's within about $150,000. So Ali tells me that we need to be closing. So I apologize if we've missed some of the questions, but we will capture all of these questions from the chat box, and in the next couple of weeks try and circulate as much as possible detailed responses to the remaining questions. So thank you everyone for your attention, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. And thank you Aduma and Majd for co-presenting this.
Thank